Namaste friends, my name is Amit Garg. Welcome to my channel Ganesha-Hanuman. I wish all of you a very happy and prosperous Gregorian New Year 2023. A lot of big shifts happening in this year. And one of the big, the major shift or transition that's going to happen is Saturn's transit in Aquarius. So that's the topic of this video. So this video will be relevant for the next 2 years because Saturn enters Aquarius on January 17, 2023, and it'll remain in Aquarius through the end of March 2025. So right now, we are in the period of transition or the Sandhikal. Right now, Saturn is in Capricorn. It's going to enter Aquarius in a couple of weeks on January 17, 2023. So this is a very sensitive period. Next couple of weeks, we can do remedies for Saturn. The big one is the Bij mantra for Saturn, which is Om Pram Prim Pram Sashane Namah. And there are lots of other remedies you can check on my website, Ganesha-Hanuman.com. So for the next 2 years, while Saturn is in Aquarius, you can refer to the slides in this video and see the impact of Saturn's journey through Aquarius on your zodiac sign. I've put in a lot of effort in creating this video, and I've made wonderful slides that you can use those for the next 2 years. I love making these videos, and please like and share and subscribe if you haven't done that already. So what will you get out of this video? If you're an astrology student, you'll learn a lot of key concepts that I'll explain in very simple, plain English. If you're not an astrologer, then you can simply check the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on your zodiac sign, and then you can prepare accordingly. Keep in mind though, so this video will talk about the impact of Saturn's transit through the sign of Aquarius, but how that'll impact you also depends on your natal chart. Each one of us have a different natal chart. So this transit or any transit affects each one of us differently. So to look at the natal chart is very important, which we're not going to do in this video. And secondly, what dasha, what planetary period you're running. If you're running Saturn period versus Jupiter period, the impact of any transit will be very different on you. So just keep that in mind, but this is a high-level guidance on how Saturn's journey through Aquarius will impact you based on your rising sign. So let's get started. Saturn in Sanskrit or Hindi, it's known as Shani, comes from Shana, which means slow. So Saturn is a very slow-moving planet. It takes about 2.5 years to transition from one zodiac sign to the other. So Saturn has been in the sign of Capricorn for the last about 2.5 years. And now in a couple of weeks, it'll go into Aquarius. Now, Saturn rules both Capricorn and Aquarius. So this transition is a very significant one because Capricorn is considered the lower sign of Capricorn, of Saturn. And Aquarius is, considered as a higher sign of Aquarius. So what I mean by that is, when Saturn is in Capricorn, which has been the case for the past 2.5 years, Capricorn is a very backward-looking sign. That means you're kind of stuck in the past. The symbol for Capricorn is a makar, is known as makar, which is an ancient creature. Okay, so you're always kind of thinking about the past, what happened, or even past lives, things like that. Whereas Aquarius is a very, very forward-looking sign. So Aquarius, it's concerned about the humanity. It's all about the social networks. It's all about the latest innovations, the new technology, the outer space exploration, all the new ideas, the new gadgets, all of that is Aquarius. So Saturn in Aquarius, that will mean, we'll see not just the plans, because Saturn is the planet of execution and, discipline and doing things on the ground. Okay. So Saturn in Aquarius will mean new discoveries and innovations, but not just like plans in the air. You'll see foundations for like social structures, social organizations at the grassroots level. You'll see actual products and gadgets and, a lot of things being done on the ground. So that's going to be Saturn in Aquarius. And Saturn in Aquarius is Saturn's Mula Trikona sign, which means Mula Trikona sign means the planet kind of feels like the president sitting in his office, right? So it's a very practical sign where the planet executes. You see the results happening. So that's a very, very welcome transition from Capricorn to Aquarius. And so how do we interpret? So that depends on your rising sign. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Let's get started. For each of the 12 zodiac signs, we'll go one by one. And first of all, I'll explain a few key astrology concepts that we will use for all the 12 zodiac signs. So let's talk about the first sign of the zodiac, Aries. So this is the chart for Aries rising. If you see here, number 1 is Aries, number 2 sign is Taurus, Gemini, like that. So number 1, Aries, is in the first house ascendant. You can see here is the first house. So this is Aries rising. So for an Aries rising person, Saturn will be placed in the 11th house, and Saturn aspects the first house, 5th house, and 8th house. So if you see here, Saturn is in the sign of Aquarius, number 11. It's placed in the, which house it's placed in? It's placed in the 11th house. So Saturn is placed in the 11th house, and it aspects the first house, 5th house, and 8th house. Let me show you that. So Saturn is aspecting the first house, the 5th house, and the 8th house. Now, what that means, the aspect, we'll talk about the effect of that in a second. Before that, let me explain a few key concepts that'll be very helpful for you. First is this idea called Upachaya houses. There are 4 houses, the 3rd house, 6th house, 10th house, and 11th house, which are known as Upachaya houses. And planets sitting in the Upachaya houses, they give better and better results with time. Okay, especially malefics. So malefics placed in these Upachaya houses give really good results. So Saturn, in case of Aries rising, it's sitting in one of the Upachaya houses. It's in the 11th house. So that's a very good placement for Saturn, for Aquarius rising. Second thing is we look at which house the Saturn is placed in. So there is this dictum, this rule, wherever Saturn goes, it uplifts that area of life. So whichever house Saturn sits in, it gives really good results for that house. But so for Aries, it's sitting in the 11th house. It'll give very good results for 11th house significations. We'll talk about that. But at the same time, wherever Saturn has aspect, it gives some challenges regarding those houses. So aspect means wherever in Sanskrit, it's the drishti, right? It's the glance. So wherever Saturn is looking at, Saturn looks at the 3rd house from itself, the 7th from itself, and the 10th from itself. So in this case, in case of Aries, Saturn will be having an aspect on the 1st house. You see, this is the 1st house. And the 5th house, this is the 5th house. And the 8th house, this is the 8th house. So for Aries rising, Saturn is aspecting the 1st house, 5th house, and 8th house. We'll see what that means in a second. The next concept is whichever house both Jupiter and Saturn aspect, that house really blossoms. You get things done for that house. Things manifest connected with that house. So in case of Aries, Jupiter and Saturn will be aspecting the 8th house here. And also the after April, they'll be aspecting different houses. But until April, both Jupiter and Saturn will be aspecting the 8th house. We'll talk about that. The next thing is you always want to look at, for each rising sign, is the Saturn a friend of the ruler of the Lagna Lord or not? So for Aries rising, Mars is the ruler of the first sign, the Lagna Lord. Saturn and Mars are not friends, but you also see which houses the Saturn rules in the chart. So for Aries rising, Saturn rules the 10th house and the 11th house. 10th house is Capricorn and 11th is Aquarius. So Saturn rules 10th house and 11th house, which are really good houses. So Saturn is actually really well placed for Aries. So those are the few things you can keep in mind for all of the rising signs. Now let's see the impact of Saturn in various house for Aries rising. Being the 10th ruler and the 11th ruler, Lord of the 10th house and 11th house, placed in the 11th house. That means for the past 2.5 years, Saturn was here in the 10th house in Capricorn, making you work hard. This is the house for career, okay? And so Saturn was here for 2.5 years. It was making you work hard, implementing projects, making progress in your career. And now it's moving to the next house, 11th house, which is the house of gains, the rewards from your career. Okay, so now you'll reap benefits of all the hard work you've done in the past 2.5 years. Okay, so and all the things that 11th house represents, financial gains. Okay, you'll develop connections with people, a lot of people, with the masses. You may be doing like online newsletters or webinars, or you may start a YouTube channel. So all of those things will manifest now. Your ambitions and desires will be fulfilled. That's the 11th house signification. And then you'll develop lots of friendships, but not any superficial friendships, very meaningful, deep friendships that will help you with your karma. Okay, that's 11th house. And then your overall goal, or this dream, or the thing in the back of your mind, you'll always be wanting to help the masses, help the humanity. Okay, through innovative ideas, through new age technology, through the internet, maybe outer space exploration, things like that. So all of this new age stuff, new technology, and the masses. So you'll be helping the humanity using the new latest technology. Then, so let's see the 8th house first. In the 8th house, you'll have the aspect of both Jupiter and Saturn. So the 8th house will have really good results for Aries rising. Okay, 8th house represents money from other people. For example, insurance, inheritance, or your spouse's money, and money from your clients also. You let's say you are a consultant, you are a healer, whatever. The money coming in from the clients is it's shown by the 8th house. So all of those things will blossom. And also 8th house is the deep hidden things. It's the secrets. It's the esoteric wisdom that's not visible, on the surface. So you'll have access. You'll have, you'll have understanding of all those deep hidden esoteric wisdom, deep secrets, if you wish to explore. Then a couple of things you want to keep an eye on. Pay attention to your health, because Saturn is aspecting your first house, and Rahu is sitting there. So Rahu and Saturn aspecting the first house, the Lagna. See, Saturn is a Vata planet, airy planet, but Rahu is like a double dose of Saturn. So there'll be a lot of Vata energy, a lot of movement, unsettled energy in your first house, in your Lagna. So you may feel scattered, you may feel confusion, you may also have, maybe issues with your like headaches or sinuses, things like that, in the head area. Okay, but things will improve after April. Only until April, Jupiter is not there in the picture. So Saturn and Rahu, a lot of excess of Vata energy possible. Then the 5th house may also have some impacts. You may have to work hard on stuff like on things like your children, connected with your children, your creative ideas, romance, speculation, your students, the mantra chanting, all of those things. You may have some challenges around those things. But after April, when Jupiter moves into Aries in April, on April 21st, then you'll have blessings in these areas. But until then, there may be some struggles. So if there were, 1 or 2 key remedies for Aries rising, that would be pay attention to your thoughts, because the first house is having aspect of Saturn and Rahu, both at the same time, right? So pay attention to your thoughts, the way you think. There'll be a lot of Vata, scattered energy. So more meditation, more being in the present moment will be really helpful for you. So now let's talk about the second sign of the zodiac, Taurus, rising people. What will be the impact of Saturn's transit in the sign of Aquarius for these 2 years and 2 months on Taurus rising people? So this is the chart for Taurus rising. You see number 2 here. That's the sign of Taurus, and that's first house. So Taurus is the first house, is the ascendant. And for Taurus rising people, Saturn will be placed in the 10th house. You see here Saturn. To check which house number it is, don't look at these numbers. Look at this chart. This shows 10th house here. So Saturn is placed in the 10th house in the sign of Aquarius, which is number 11 sign is Aquarius. Okay, so Saturn is placed in the 10th house, and Saturn aspects the 12th house, the 4th house, and the 7th house. Let me show you that. So Saturn has a first aspect, the third aspect on the 12th house. It has the 7th aspect on the 4th house, and it has 10th aspect on the 7th house. So these are the three houses that Saturn is aspecting: the 12th house, the 4th house, and the 7th house. We'll see the effect of that in a second. So now for Taurus rising, Saturn is a Yoga Karaka planet. That means anytime a planet rules one of the Kendra houses and one of the Kona houses at the same time, it becomes a Yoga Karaka. Kendra are these four inner houses, the pillars of the chart, and Trikona houses are the first house, fifth house, and ninth house. So if a planet rules one of the Kendra houses and one of the Trikona houses, it becomes a Yoga Karaka, meaning it actually rules one of the Vishnu houses and one of the Lakshmi houses. It's a very, very powerful planet for that rising sign. So for Taurus rising, Saturn is a Yoga Karaka. It's a very, very powerful planet. And also at the same time, it's a friend of the ruler of the chart, friend of the Lagna Lord Venus. Saturn and Venus are very close friends. Okay, so Saturn is a very beneficial planet for Taurus rising. Then Saturn is also placed in an Upachaya house. Upachaya means the third house, sixth house, 10th house, and 11th house are known as Upachaya houses. And if malefics are placed in these houses, they give better and better results over time. And Saturn, as you can see, for Taurus is placed in the 10th house, which is one of the Upachaya houses. So for Taurus rising, Saturn will give really good results. So now let's look at the details. So Saturn is the 9th lord and the 10th lord placed in the 10th house. Okay, Saturn is the 9th lord, this is the 9th house, 9th lord and the 10th lord. This is Capricorn and Aquarius, placed in the 10th house. What that means? This means it's a very, very powerful time for you to focus on your work, on your career. You'll get promotion, you'll get success, you'll create new projects, new business. So all of that during these 2 years and 2 months. So focus on your profession, on your career, on your work, on your karma. So karma will be the main focus for these 2 years. Okay. Next, both Saturn and Jupiter are aspecting your 7th house. So anytime these two planets aspect a house at the same time, that house flourishes. You get things manifested regarding that house. So 7th house represents marriage, relationships, partnerships, one-on-one connections. So all of that will blossom until April, because Jupiter will be moving out of Pisces into the sign of Aries in April. But until April, Jupiter and Saturn are both aspecting your 7th house. So great time to get married, find a partner, develop even business partnerships, one-on-one partnerships. All right. And then 12th house, you see Saturn is aspecting the 12th house. It's the third aspect of Saturn, and Rahu is sitting there. Okay, so that means a lot of this Vata energy in the 12th house, because Saturn is a Vata planet and Rahu is an extra dose of Saturn, right? So huge Vata energy. Now that could be, that could mean like mental tension, maybe lack of sleep, lack of deep sleep, but that's really powerful for spiritual upliftment, for like things like astral travel. Okay, you can get messages in your dreams, travel to the other planes of existence, but also letting go of things, more detached kind of attitude. And good remedies are giving donations and foreign travel. So if you make a trip, let's say pilgrimage, or any foreign travel, that will be a wonderful remedy, and that'll calm down this excess Vata energy of Saturn and Rahu. Okay. Then let's look at the fourth house. Fourth house, there may be some tension, regarding your home environment, with respect to your mother, or issues with real estate or vehicles. You may not feel super happy or settled. But after April, once Jupiter moves into Aries, that will calm down. Things will improve a lot. And one quick look at the sixth house, because Ketu has been sitting in your sixth house for the past about 6 months or so, more than 6 months. So just pay attention to your health in general, to make sure there are no hidden issues. You may find some confusion regarding your health since the past 6 months and until November 2023. So just get checked up and pay attention to your health. Other than that, very, very uplifting time for Taurus. Extremely powerful window of opportunity for making progress in your career. And so one remedy, if I were to recommend just one remedy, that would be, as I mentioned, focus on your karma, focus on your career. Okay. All right. So now we'll talk about the effect of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Gemini rising. Gemini is the third sign of the zodiac. You see the chart here. Gemini rising, number 3 sign is rising. The first house is Gemini. And for Gemini rising, Saturn will be placed in the 9th house, and it will be aspecting the 11th house, the 3rd house, and the 6th house. So you see here, Saturn is placed in the 9th house. You can see the house number from here, 9th house. Saturn placed in the 9th house in the sign of Aquarius. I'll show you the aspects in a second. So Saturn will be aspecting the 11th house, the 3rd house, and the 6th house. So Saturn sitting in the 9th house will be aspecting the 11th house, the 3rd house, and the 6th house. So what's happening is, for Gemini rising, Saturn was or has been transiting in the sign of Capricorn for the last 2.5 years, in their 8th house. So a strong Saturn in the 8th house, that means for the past 2.5 years, they've been learning or diving deep into esoteric wisdom, maybe practicing astral travel or uncovering or discovering the hidden secrets of the universe. So a lot of very deep spiritual studies, spiritual practices. That's what they've been doing for the past 2.5 years. And now Saturn is going into the 9th house. That means this is the house for Bhagya, the luck. So the luck will shine upon them now. The focus now will be on more interaction, more learning with the gurus, with the teachers, and also there'll be some focus on father's health or spending time with father, and they'll be discussing deep philosophy. There may be also spiritual travel, pilgrimage to distant places. So all of that will be the focus of 9th house for the next 2 years and 2 months for Gemini rising people. The other thing is a very strong Saturn. So Saturn in Aquarius is very, very strong. That's the Mula Trikona sign for Saturn, right? So a Gemini rising person has a very strong Saturn sitting in the 9th house, and it is aspecting, it is looking at 3 of the Upachaya houses. It's looking at the 11th house, the 3rd house, and the 6th house. So all these 3 houses are Upachaya houses, and Upachaya houses are the ones. There are 4 houses: 3rd house, 6th house, 10th house, and 11th house, known as Upachaya houses. That means these houses give you better and better results over time. And especially if a malefic is sitting in any of these houses, or if a malefic is aspecting these houses, that's a very good indication for the significations of these houses. So you'll have blessings for your 11th house and 3rd house and 6th house significations. We'll talk about those. So first of all, let's look at the 6th house. So the 6th house, Saturn is having the 10th aspect on 6th house, but also Jupiter is aspecting the 6th house until April. So all of these things, competition, enemies, your health, and your service, your job, those things will have a blessing until April. And then there may be some issues, some challenges after April. So just to keep that in mind. Then Saturn is aspecting the 11th house, and 11th house um, it represents our ambitions, our desires, our friendships, very deep friendships, and also reaching out to the masses and our finances. All of that will have a big boost. There'll be improvement in all of those areas after April, once Jupiter moves into the sign of Aries, into your 11th house. Okay. The third house significations, there may be some challenges with your siblings or your relationship with your siblings, and as your skills, your courage, those things may be impacted for the next few months until April. After April, you'll have blessings of the Jupiter for the third house as well. So that's in a nutshell. The key remedy, if there were just one remedy for Gemini people, that'll be focus on your 9th house. That's the huge blessing you have for the next 2 years, 2 months. Spend time with the elders, with the gurus, with your father, and do a lot of dharmic activities. So that's the recommendation for Gemini, right? Thank you. So now we'll talk about the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Cancer rising. This is the chart for Cancer rising. Number 4 sign is Cancer, and it's in the first house of the chart. That is ascendant. So this is the chart for Cancer rising. For Cancer rising people, Saturn will be placed in the 8th house. You see here Saturn here in the 8th house. And Saturn will be aspecting the 10th house, the 2nd house, and the 5th house. Let me show you that. So from the 8th house, Saturn will be aspecting the 10th house, which is Aries, the 2nd house, which is Leo, and the 5th house, which is Scorpio. So Saturn is sitting in the 8th house, okay? For the last 2.5 years, Saturn was transiting through your 7th house, which was a bit difficult because from 7th house, Saturn was aspecting or looking at your lagna, at your first house. So that gives this sense of pressure and a lot of hard work. And if you see a connection between Saturn and the lagna lord, Saturn is not a friend of the lagna lord moon. For Cancer rising, the lagna lord or the ruler of the first house is moon. And moon and Saturn are not friends. They're actually very different. Moon is the fastest moving planet and Saturn is the slowest moving planet. Moon is all about emotions and protection and all that. Saturn is a very serious, practical, hardworking planet. Okay, so that's one challenge. The other thing is for Cancer rising, Saturn is the 7th ruler and the 8th house ruler. So not very good houses. So in other words, Saturn is not a super great or friendly planet for Cancer rising. And also, if you have your moon in Cancer, now we're talking about the rising sign, but if you have your moon in Cancer, then Saturn will be transiting the 8th house from your moon. That is called Dhaya. That is the 2.5 years when Saturn transits either the 4th house or the 8th house from your moon. So that gives a lot of mental stress and pressure. But we'll just talk about the Cancer rising for now. So first of all, Saturn sitting in the 8th house, what does that mean? It's a very, very strong Saturn. It's not just, a weak planet sitting in the 8th house. 8th house in general may give you challenges, but Saturn is a very, very strong. Saturn, in fact, likes to be in the 8th house, right? So 6th house, 8th house, 12th house, those are all ruled by Saturn. And so Saturn, and that too, a very strong Saturn, a Mula Trikona Saturn in its own sign in the 8th house. That means you will have access to a lot of hidden secrets, hidden wisdom, traditional wisdom, ancient wisdom, and then also access to research, like if you want to do PhD or any kind of research, this is a perfect time for you. And you may also benefit financially you may get money from other people, the unearned wealth, right? So this is not what you earn, but the money from other people, for example, inheritance or from your spouse or insurance money, all of that will be positive developments for you these next 2 years, okay? Then let's look at the fifth house. First, the fifth house aspect of Saturn is the 10th aspect. So until April, both Saturn and Jupiter are aspecting your fifth house. That means very, very, very positive time for having children or spending time with your children, or just good period for your children, and also stocks and speculation and romance, and for your disciples, for your students, for mantra shastra. All of those things are very, very positive for the next 4 months or so until April. After that, there may be some challenges because Jupiter will be moving away. So you won't have aspect of Jupiter on the fifth house after April. Okay. Now look at the 10th house. Now 10th house has Rahu sitting there and Saturn is aspecting the 10th house. That's the sign of Aries. So there's a lot of Vata energy, extreme Vata energy until April. After April, Jupiter will move to Aries, so things will stabilize. But until April, be careful about your job, your work, actually, and your boss. And so pay attention to your professional life until April. The second house, similar thing happening here. Until April, there's no aspect of Jupiter, but there is aspect of Rahu and Saturn until April. That means the things signified by second house, which is the family wealth, the family itself, and the speech and the food that we eat, all of those may be having some challenges until April. So the key remedy, one of the key guidance for Cancer rising would be focus on this strength of the 8th house in your chart for the next 2 years and 2 months. So dive deep into the spiritual aspects, the very traditional studies and wisdom, and maybe like astral travel, yoga nidra, things like that will be the focus and are going to be very, very powerful for you. You can dive deep into those things. Okay, so that was the overall guidance for Saturn. Saturn's transit in Aquarius for Cancer rising. Now we'll see the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Leo rising. So this is the chart for Leo rising. Number 5 is Leo sign. It's in the first house, ascendant. So for Leo rising, Saturn will be placed in the 7th house, and it aspects the 9th house, the 1st house, and the 4th house. So Saturn placed in the 7th house. You see, this is the 7th house. So Saturn in Aquarius will be placed in the 7th house. And let me show you the aspects. So from the 7th house, Saturn will be aspecting the 9th house, the 1st house, and the 4th house. So Saturn has 3rd aspect on the 9th house. Saturn has 7th aspect on the 1st house, and Saturn has 10th aspect on the 4th house. So in general, for Leo rising, Saturn is first of all, Saturn is not a friend of the Lagna Lord, which is Sun. So the Lagna is Leo, and the Lord of Leo is Sun. Sun and Saturn don't get along very well. In fact, they are bitter enemies, Sun and Saturn. Secondly, for Leo rising, Saturn is the 6th house ruler and the 7th house ruler, right? So that's, again, Saturn is not the ruler of very good houses for Leo rising. And thirdly, with Saturn in Aquarius sitting in the 7th house, Saturn will be aspecting the Lagna. So that, again, whenever Saturn has an aspect, drishti, on Lagna, that means you may feel this kind of pressure, a lot of hard work, and you may feel like there are no rewards. You're just working. So that shows some challenges for Leo rising. But also Saturn in 7th house, it is actually in Digbala, meaning it has directional strength. Saturn likes to be in the 7th house, feels very strong. So there is some balancing, energy there. Now let's see what all this means. Saturn placed in the 7th house. When Saturn is in the 7th house in Aquarius and Mula Trikona sign, that means it'll be a good period for relationships, for getting married, for one-on-one partnerships, and also you may gain from your partner, or if you some people actually have more luck after they get married, so the marriage may be beneficial for you. And also, so you'll develop these one-on-one relationships, both business and personal relationships, which are meaningful, which are long-term, which are deep relationships. So that's very strong placement of Saturn in the 7th house. Then let's look at the 4th house, the 10th aspect of Saturn on the 4th house, what that means. So until April, Jupiter is also aspecting the 4th house. So that means it's the things related to the 4th house will fructify. You'll have positive results for the 4th house significations, which is 4th house represents our mother, our place of residence, and vehicles, inner happiness, all of that. So those things will be good. You'll see positive results around those things. Then 9th house, Saturn is aspecting 9th house. Now 9th house has Rahu there. It's Aries, and Saturn is aspecting the 9th house. So 9th house may have a lot of this Vata energy, this kind of frustration, confusion, lack of satisfaction. Essentially, when Saturn and Rahu are together, the person feels complete lack of satisfaction, no matter how much you achieve in that area. So there might be some issues around your father, your relationship with your father, or father's health, relationship with your teachers and gurus, things connected with your religion and dharma, and your bhagya, the luck. So those things may be, some issues until April. And once Jupiter goes there in April, then things will calm down. You'll see more positive results. And then this, as we mentioned, Saturn will be aspecting the 1st house, the Lagna. So you may feel like, as I mentioned, a lot of hard work, and you have to keep your ego in check, and then also take care of your health, because 1st house represents our health in general, and our self-image, our personality, all of that. So those things, take care of those things until April. The key remedy for Leo rising is, first is, just the 1st house significations, let go of your ego, okay? And then reap the benefits of strong placement of Saturn in the 7th house. So focus on your relationships, strengthen your relationships, develop new relationships. Now we'll see the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Virgo rising. So this is a chart for Virgo rising. Number 6 is the Virgo sign. It is in the 1st house, the ascendant, so it's rising sign. So it's a Virgo rising. For Virgo rising people, Saturn will be placed in your 6th house, and Saturn will aspect the 8th house, the 12th house, and the 3rd house. So Saturn is sitting here in the 6th house. This is the 6th house you see here, 6th house. And let me show you the aspects. So while sitting in the 6th house, Saturn will be aspecting the 8th house directly here, and the 12th house and the 3rd house. Okay, so you see here 8th house, the 12th house, and this one is the 3rd house. Okay, first of all, sitting in the 6th house, Saturn is actually touching the trig houses, which are the trig houses are 6, 8, and 12. These are generally considered as difficult houses. So Saturn is actually touching or making a connection with all these three houses, 6, 8, and 12, and also the third house, which is an Upachaya house. So those are actually, that's a strong connection. So anytime Saturn is connected with 6, 8, or 12, it makes those houses more powerful. So you get positive results. And also third house is a Upachaya house. Upachaya houses are 3, 6, 10, and 11. Anytime Saturn or any malefic has influence on the Upachaya houses, they get strength. So a very positive, solid placement for Virgo rising in general. A very, very good, powerful Saturn sitting in the 6th house. First of all, it'll lift up the 6th house, but also it's looking at all the difficult houses. So that will a malefic sitting in the difficult houses or aspecting difficult houses actually lifts up those houses. So overall, a strong positive placement or a positive transition for Virgo rising. Okay. Now let's talk about each individual houses. So Saturn sitting in the 6th house, all the 6th house significations, your job, your service, the competition, sitting for competitive exams, loans, health related issues, all of those will be positive. There'll be improvement, there'll be better results for those areas of life. Okay. Then let's look at the 10th aspect first, the third house. So the third house will see positive results initially because Jupiter is aspecting the third house as well until April. So the first 4 months, you'll have good relationship with your siblings, or your siblings will blossom. You'll feel more courageous. You'll learn new skills. You may use your hands a lot, maybe hand mudras, things like that. Beneficial short distance travels, like within the city. All those do have positive indications till April. Then the 12th house, even though, as we learned in the earlier video, that wherever Saturn is looking, those houses suffer. But 12th house is an exception, where if Saturn is looking at the 12th house, it will have positive influence. So it actually, first thing it does is it restricts your expenses, right? So wherever Saturn looks, that area gets restricted. So your expenses may go down, actually. Okay. And one of the key remedies you could even do for that is you could give some donations. And this is a very, very positive aspect for spiritual growth. You see, Saturn is looking at both 8th house and 12th houses, right? So any kind of like astral travel, yoga nidra, connecting with the ancestors, sleep meditation, those things are very, very beneficial going to be very beneficial for you. So very good period for spiritual growth overall. Now, also 8th house aspect, because 8th house has Rahu sitting in there, and so Saturn aspecting the 8th house means there could be, yes, a lot of excess Vata energy in the 8th house. So maybe sudden changes, transformations, and that too till April. And actually May also, because Sun will be in Aries from April through mid-May. But once Jupiter enters Aries in the 8th house, things will stabilize. Okay. So then, but till then, you got to be careful with the 8th house significations. But the overall theme for Virgo rising is that focus on spirituality, focus on the 8th house and the 12th house significations. Go deep in your spiritual studies. So now we'll see the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Libra rising. This is the chart for Libra rising. The number 7 here, you see, that's a sign of Libra. In the ascendant, the first house is Libra. So for Libra rising, Saturn is placed in the 5th house, and Saturn aspects the 7th house, the 11th house, and the 2nd house. Now, let's see overall how beneficial Saturn is for Libra rising. First of all, Saturn is a friend of the Lagna Lord Venus. The Lagna is Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So the Lagna Lord is Venus, and Saturn is a very good friend of Venus. So for the Libra rising, Saturn is a good planet. Also, Saturn rules the fourth house and the fifth house. So it makes it a Yoga Karaka planet. Yoga Karaka means it rules one of the Kendra houses and one of the Kona houses. So one of the 1, 4, 7, 10 and one of the 1, 5, 9. Out of those, it rules fourth house and fifth house. So Saturn is a Yoga Karaka for Libra rising, which just means it's a very powerful, very beneficial, very positive planet for this Lagna, for this rising, for Libra rising. Now, let's see the actual placement. So Saturn has been transiting over your fourth house for the past 2.5 years, and now Saturn will be going over to your fifth house in Aquarius, starting January 17th. And then let me show you the aspects. So Saturn sitting in the fifth house will be aspecting the seventh house, the 11th house, and the second house. Excuse me. So Saturn will be aspecting the seventh house. You see seventh house here. And the 11th house, you see 11th house here. And the second house, the second house here. So what does that mean? So let's look at the fifth house itself first, where the Saturn is placed. So all the significations of fifth house will get a big boost because Saturn is extremely powerful, sitting in the fifth house in Aquarius for Libra rising. So everything connected with the fifth house, which is children, your relationship with your children, their life in general, romance, mantras, learning, and also change in career, because fifth is eighth from the 10th. So that's the transformation or change of career, and speculation, all of that. And your disciples, your students, you'll get more students, you'll get more learners, more disciples if you are teaching, consulting, coaching. So all of those will get a big boost. So this is a good solid 2 years period where you can reap the benefits of all these areas in your life. Okay, now let's look at the 10th aspect of Saturn, that is on the second house. The second house will have aspect of both Saturn and Jupiter at the same time. So that means this house will fructify, will give positive results. You'll manifest things related to this house, which is the second house represents your wealth, your family, the food that you eat, the speech, the words that come out of your mouth. So all those will be very solid, very strong until April. In April, Jupiter moves over to Aries, and that's when Jupiter stops aspecting the second house. Now let's look at the seventh house. Saturn has a third aspect on the seventh house, and you have Rahu sitting in the seventh house in the sign of Aries. So Saturn and Rahu both aspecting the seventh house, extreme dose of Vata energy, a lot of Vata energy. So there may be some issues with the spouse's health, or any of your relationships, one-on-one relationships in general. So take care of those. Pay attention to those. But once Jupiter enters Aries in April, things will stabilize. So you'll see positive results regarding relationships. Finally, Saturn's aspect on the 11th house. Until April, there is no aspect of Jupiter. So until April, you have Saturn and Rahu both aspecting your 11th house. So there may be some concern regarding your ambitions, your desires, finances, your gains, your friends, your connection with the masses. All of those things, pay extra attention to those until April. And once Jupiter goes into Aries, then those things will flourish. So the key remedy, the overall guidance for Libra rising is focus, reap the benefits of the fifth house, nurture your children, spend time with your children, coach your children. And then also the area of challenge, the challenging area, the seventh house, pay attention to your relationships. Okay. So now we'll see the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Scorpio rising. This is the chart for Scorpio rising. Number 8 sign is Scorpio, and it's the Lagna, the first house. So the first house is Scorpio. For Scorpio rising, Saturn is placed in the 4th house, and Saturn aspects the 6th house, the 10th house, and 1st house. First of all, Saturn is not a friend of Lagna Lord for Scorpio rising. The Lagna Lord for Scorpio rising is Mars. Saturn and Mars are not friends. They're not compatible. Mars is very aggressive, everything now, whereas Saturn is the planet for patience and long-term things. So it's like, Saturn is like applying the brakes. Mars is like hitting the accelerator. Okay, so they're not compatible. So that's a little bit challenging. Now let's see, the Saturn is placed in the 4th house here. This is the 4th house. You see 4th house here. So Saturn in Aquarius in the 4th house, we'll see what that means. Let me show you the aspects first. So sitting in the 4th house, Saturn will be aspecting the 6th house. Saturn will be aspecting the 10th house. And Saturn will be aspecting the 1st house. Okay, so Saturn has a 3rd aspect on the 6th house. Saturn has a 7th aspect on the 10th house. Saturn has a 10th aspect on the 1st house. Okay, first of all, Saturn, and also one other thing, if you have your moon placed in Scorpio, then Saturn is 4 houses away from your moon. So that is the Daya, that 2.5 years where Saturn may be, it may cause like mental stress and just a lot of hard work and this feeling of pressure for these next 2 years. Okay, so now Saturn is sitting in the 4th house for Scorpio rising. So that means there will be some focus on your home, your place of residence, property, real estate, vehicles, some things connected with your mother. So those things should get a boost because wherever Saturn sits, it gives positive results for that house. So all these things, significations of the 4th house will get a boost, positive results in general. And then let's see the 10th aspect first. So Saturn is aspecting the 1st house, and that's a 10th aspect. And also at the same time, Jupiter is aspecting your Lagna, your 1st house. Okay, so both Jupiter and Saturn are aspecting the 1st house until April. So until April, you'll see, more self-confidence. Your personality will develop, and also better for your health. You may actually start some health routines, take care of your health. So positive indications for the 1st house significations until April. The 10th house, there may be some challenges to your work, your career until April because both Saturn and Rahu are aspecting your 10th house until April. Same thing with the 6th house. In fact, Rahu is sitting in the 6th house and Saturn is aspecting the 6th house. So a lot of Vata energy, excess of Vata energy in the 6th house. So that means significations of the 6th house, which are your health, your Shadripus, the conflicts and enemies, and your job also, your service that you do. All of those may be under stress until April, but the things will improve substantially when Jupiter goes there in Aries. So one of the key things to remember is the key remedy for Scorpio rising would be focus on your health because 6th house is involved, and also have patience because in general, by nature, Scorpio rising, because it's ruled by Mars, you may have tendency to do things, very, very quickly, fast thinking, fast action. Everything is, right now. But with Saturn moving in the fourth house, you may need to have more patience. So you have to balance the Saturn and the Mars energy. Now we'll talk about Saturn's transit in Aquarius for Sagittarius rising. So if you're Sagittarius rising, you'll see number 9 here, which is Sagittarius in the Lagna as the rising sign. So for Sagittarius rising, Saturn is placed in the 3rd house, and Saturn is aspecting the 5th house, the 9th house, and the 12th house. So you see here Saturn sitting in the 3rd house. This is the 3rd house in Aquarius. And let me show you the aspects. So sitting in the 3rd house, first of all, Saturn is aspecting the 5th house. I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay, so from the 3rd house, Saturn is aspecting the 5th house. Saturn is aspecting the 9th house, and Saturn is aspecting the 12th house. Okay, so these are the 3 houses Saturn is aspecting: the 5th house, the 9th house, and the 12th house. So what does all this mean? The 3rd house will get a big boost. Saturn likes to be in the 3rd house. It's one of the Upachaya houses. So any malefic sitting in the Upachaya houses, they give better results over time. Okay. So all the things related to the 3rd house, which is your skills, your even your desires, your hands, your courage, you'll be more courageous. Your writing skills, your short distance travels within the city, and your younger siblings especially. So those things, your connection with your younger siblings, so those things will get a boost. Very, very positive results regarding those things. Now, Saturn, first of all, let's look at the 12th house aspect. Saturn is aspecting the 12th house, and also Jupiter is aspecting your 12th house until April. So until April, significant positive results for 12th house significations, which is your sleep, the foreign travel, meditation, donations, pilgrimage, all of those, and also spiritual journeys, like astral travel, things like that. All of those things will be beneficial until April. Next is the 5th aspect of Saturn. So pay attention to the 5th house significations, because Saturn and Rahu both are aspecting the 5th house. So I'm sorry, the 5th house here. And so 5th house, take care of your relationship with your children, the romance, be careful with all of that. Speculation, try not to do any speculative investments until April. So once Jupiter goes into the 5th house, then those things will improve. But until then, be very cautious. Finally, the aspect to the 9th house. So there may be some issues related to your father's health, your connection, or relationship with your teachers and gurus, in general, your dharma, your luck, your bhagya. All of those things may have some issues until April. Once Jupiter goes into Aries, then Jupiter will be aspecting the 9th house as well. Then those things will improve. So the main guidance, the remedy for Sagittarius rising is develop the skills related to the 3rd house significations, nurture those, but also pay attention to your connection with your children, or in general, support your children. That's the 5th house signification. Okay, so that's the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Sagittarius rising. So now we'll look at the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Capricorn rising. So this is the chart for Capricorn rising. You see number 10 here, that is the sign of Capricorn. It's the 1st house, it's the rising sign. And for Capricorn rising, in fact, Saturn is the ruler of the 1st house, the Lagna. Okay, so you can say Saturn is the ruler of the chart. and Saturn will be placed in the second house, and Saturn will be aspecting the fourth house, the eighth house, and the 11th house. So first of all, Saturn will be moving away from your lagna, from your first house to your second house. So that's you'll feel like this huge pressure is lifting off of your head. Okay, so you'll feel this relief. In general, this energy of Saturn sitting on your head, sitting on your first house, is very, could be difficult at times. Okay, so that's a huge positive thing happening. The second thing is, if you have your moon in Capricorn, okay, that means you have been going through the Sadesati, and this will be the last phase of your Sadesati, the last 2.5 years of Sadesati. Okay, just something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's look at the placement and the aspects. So Saturn is placed in the second house here. And from second house, Saturn is aspecting the fourth house, eighth house, and 11th house. Let me show you those. So from the second house, Saturn is aspecting the fourth house. Saturn is aspecting the eighth house and the 11th house. Okay. So first of all, second house placement of Saturn. That means so since Saturn is in its Mula Trikona sign, very, very strong placement of Saturn. So that means all the things connected with your second house, which is your speech, your food, the family, the wealth, all of those will get a boost. You'll have positive results around the second house significations. Next, the 10th aspect, which is the 11th house. So Saturn is aspecting the 11th house, and also Jupiter is aspecting the 11th house. So you'll have positive results related to the 11th house, which is reaching out to the masses, doing maybe like newsletter or YouTube channel and advanced technology stuff, online things, and reaching out to your friends, fulfillment of desires, ambitions, and financial gains. All of those will be positive until April. So the first 4 months of the year, those things will give you good results. The fourth house is one of the concerned areas until April, because both Saturn and Rahu are aspecting the fourth house. In fact, Rahu is sitting there. So some issues maybe with your mother's health, property issues, maybe vehicle issues. So those things, just pay attention to those things until April. Once Jupiter goes to the fourth house, things will stabilize. You'll have better results. Finally, the eighth house aspect of Saturn. That means you may experience some sudden changes, maybe some unexpected changes, maybe some secrets may be revealed. So until April, pay attention, keep those things in check. Once Jupiter moves into the fourth house of Aries, then it'll aspect eighth house as well. So things will stabilize. You'll have better results. But until then, until April, pay attention to the eighth house significations. One of the key guidance recommendations or remedy would be, since fourth house has excess Vata energy for a few months at least, try to be at home where you are. Essentially, be satisfied with your both the physical place of residence and also where you are mentally and in general. So now we'll see the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Aquarius rising. So if you're Aquarius rising, this is the chart for you, the transit chart. You'll see number 11 here, which is the sign of Aquarius in the Lagna, in the first house, in the rising sign. It is Aquarius rising. So Aquarius rising, the Lagna Lord itself is Saturn. So Saturn rules Aquarius, okay? So very, very strong positive transit for you. So for Aquarius rising, Saturn will be placed in the first house here. And Saturn is aspecting the third house, the seventh house, and the 10th house. So let me show you the aspects. So while sitting in the first house, Saturn is aspecting the third house, the seventh house, and the 10th house. Okay. Now, if you have your moon in Aquarius as well, okay, so then see here, if let's say your natal moon is in Aquarius, so Saturn will be going over your moon. So you are going to be in the middle phase of your Sadesati. The middle 2.5 years of Sadesati will be operating during this transit. So you may feel a lot of mental stress and pressure during this transit. But right now we'll focus on Aquarius rising, which means your Lagna is Aquarius, not your moon. So what does that mean, all of this? Saturn sitting in the first house, it will boost your overall personality, your your self-image, your self-worth in general in your own eyes, and you'll feel more mature and more responsible, and you'll do a lot of hard work. You'll set foundation for the long term. Okay, so this will Saturn in the Lagna actually makes you work very, very hard, but none of that hard work goes waste. You will be setting foundation for future. So it'll all be very, very beneficial. It'll make you essentially, it'll make you do your dharma. I'm sorry, your karma. Saturn being the planet for karma, sitting in the first house in our Lagna, makes you do your karma diligently. There is no escaping your karma. Okay. Now, Saturn, first of all, let's look at the 10th house aspect. So Saturn is going to aspect the 10th house. And at the same time, Jupiter is also aspecting your 10th house. So, so this is a beneficial combination for your career, for your profession, for your work until April. After April, Jupiter moves to Aries. But until then, Jupiter has aspect on your 10th house. So positive indications for the 10th house significations. Saturn has the third house aspect. So Rahu is sitting in your third house, and Saturn will be aspecting the third house as well. So that means a lot of Vata energy, unsettled energy, dissatisfaction connected with the third house signification. So your relationship with your siblings may suffer a little bit. Or there may be some uncertainty in your siblings' lives. And also you may feel less courageous. And you may feel, some issues with your skills, with your hands, and your desires, and also some issues related to the short distance travels within the city. Okay, so take care of those until April. Once Jupiter goes there in April, then things will stabilize. You'll feel positive. You'll get positive results. But until April, take care of those things. Finally, the 7th house aspect of Saturn. Okay, so pay attention to your relationships. One-on-one relationships may suffer a little bit until April. After April, Jupiter will go to Aries. It'll be aspecting your 7th house as well. So you'll see positive results for the much better results for the 7th house. But until April, pay close attention to your 7th house, which is mainly your relationships, your one-on-one relationships. The key remedy, the main guidance for Aquarius rising is focus on your first house. Be very, very responsible. Be truthful. Be humble, and focus on your karma. Do not try to escape your karma. Okay. So now we'll see the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius on Pisces rising. If you have your rising sign as Pisces, which is number 12, the last zodiac sign, right? So this is your first house, your rising sign. If it says number 12 here, that means your Pisces rising. So for Pisces rising, Saturn will be placed in the 12th house. So this is your 12th house here, and Saturn will be placed here. And sitting in the 12th house, Saturn will be aspecting your 2nd house, your 6th house, and your 9th house. Let me show you the aspects. So sitting in the 12th house, Saturn will be aspecting your second house, your 6th house, and your 9th house. Okay. So what does all that mean? One other thing, if you have your moon in Pisces, then you'll be starting your Sadhisati. Okay, so let's say your moon is placed in Pisces, then Saturn just entering Aquarius. So you'll be starting your 7.5 years of period where Saturn is traveling, going over your natal moon. So there may be some kind of mental pressure and in general, you may have to be working very hard during Saraswati. But right now, we'll just talk about the rising sign, not the moon sign. So if your Pisces rising, this is how it's going to look like. First of all, Saturn sitting in the 12th house. That means it will actually restrict your expenses, but it'll be a good thing for you good remedy for you to give donations, even travel abroad. That's indicated. It's good to, give donations, and also lots of meditation. You'll have a positive impact on your meditation, on any of the spiritual work that you do, esoteric work like astral travel, connecting with the ancestors through your dreams, yoga nidra. All of those will be very, very beneficial for you. And also letting go is the theme. Just let go of things that are not needed. Next, Saturn's aspect on the 9th house. So Saturn is aspecting the 9th house, but Jupiter is also aspecting the 9th house at the same time. So 9th house gets a boost until April. So your higher studies, your connection with your gurus, your father's health, spirituality, dharma, rituals, all of that will be very, very beneficial, positive results until April. The 2nd house may suffer a little bit because Rahu is sitting there and Saturn aspecting the 2nd house. So there may be some excess vata energy, excess of wind energy, uncertainty, unsettled energy, some unfounded fears, or this lack of satisfaction connected with the 2nd house significations, which are your speech, your food, your family. All of those things you may feel dissatisfaction until April. Finally, the 6th house aspect, Saturn is aspecting the 6th house. So those things may be under pressure. So your health in general, the Shadripus, the 6 enemies, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, and also the competition and your job, your service, those things, pay attention to all of that until April. Once Jupiter goes to Aries, then it'll aspect the 6th house. So things will stabilize. You'll feel better results, but until April, pay attention to those things. The key remedy, or what is the main guidance for Pisces rising, is focus on the strength of your 12th house for the next 2 years and 2 months. Do yoga nidra, do lucid dreaming, do lots of meditation, astral travel, donations, pilgrimage, foreign country travel, all of that. So that was the impact of Saturn's transit in Aquarius for all the 12 zodiac signs, and how that'll affect you based on your rising sign. And you can refer to these slides for the next 2 years and 2 months. And you'll learn a lot of key astrology concepts as well in plain English if you watch this video again and again. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. Please let me know any questions or feedback in the comment section below. May you all have a blessed transit of Saturn in Kumbh Rashi, which is the sign of Aquarius. Thank you very much. Namaste.